few explorers risk their safety to dive the wrecks which litter the Baltic seabed.
The Baltic Sea has always carried the weight of forgotten departures.
Lying intact at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, which may help solve a decades-old mystery and long-lost treasure, the location of the Amber Room.
Yet few imagined it still guarded a secret capable of reshaping the fate of a vanished masterpiece. When divers approached a rusted steamer lost since 1945, the quiet descent hinted at a revelation, drawing attention back to the sea itself and the strange way it preserves the past. A sea that preserves secrets. The Baltic Sea has long served as a boundary between nations, yet beneath its muted waves lies an environment uniquely shaped to guard the past rather than erase it. Its low salinity, cold temperatures, and oxygen-starved depths prevent the decay that consumes most shipwrecks, allowing steel hulls, wooden crates, and forgotten machinery to linger in near-suspended animation. Historians often describe it as an accidental archive, a place where wars do not fully end, and where their remnants wait patiently for rediscovery. This unusual preservation has drawn researchers for decades, especially those attempting to understand the final, chaotic months of the Second World War, when the Baltic became an escape route and a graveyard at the same time. During the winter and spring of 1945, Operation Hannibal transformed the sea into a corridor of desperation as hundreds of thousands of civilians and wounded soldiers fled the collapsing Eastern Front. Ships overloaded with refugees departed in haste, shadowed by advancing Soviet forces and threatened by air attacks that turned the water into a landscape of sinking silhouettes. Many of these vessels never reached safety, settling instead on the seabed with their stories sealed inside fractured hulls. Among them was a modest steamer that would one day capture global attention because of what it might still be carrying: the Amber Room's vanishing trail. Long before the Baltic Sea became central to the mystery, the Amber Room had already lived several extraordinary lives, each defined by beauty, diplomacy, and conflict. Crafted in the early 18th century from vast quantities of fossilized resin, the chamber shimmered with a warmth that seemed to glow from within, drawing diplomats, artisans, and royalty into its orbit. When it was installed in the Catherine Palace, its gilded panels, intricate mosaics, and mirror-lined surfaces created an atmosphere so luminous that visitors described the room as a jewel animated by firelight. Its symbolic weight grew with time, transforming it into both a masterpiece of craftsmanship and a testament to imperial ambition. Everything changed in 1941 when German forces advanced toward Leningrad and curators attempted to disguise the chamber beneath hastily applied wallpaper. The effort failed almost immediately, and within days the room was dismantled, packed into 27 crates, and transported to Königsberg Castle. There it was reassembled, displayed briefly as cultural proof of conquest, and then dismantled once more as the tide of war turned. By early 1945, as the Red Army closed in and British air raids reduced much of the city to ruins, the crates disappeared from official records entirely. Some believed the contents were destroyed in the bombing, while others suspected a covert evacuation, yet no confirmed evidence surfaced to settle the debate. For decades, this abrupt endpoint frustrated researchers, leaving the chamber suspended between rumor and possibility, waiting for a lead strong enough to reopen the trail. The NKVD document that changes everything. For many years, the disappearance of the Amber Room appeared permanently severed from any reliable documentation. Yet, a discovery in the late 1990s shifted the narrative in a way few historians anticipated. Among a series of declassified Soviet intelligence files, investigators uncovered an NKVD report describing several heavily guarded crates removed from Königsberg Castle during the city's final days. The document noted that the crates were transported under strict supervision to the port of Pilau and loaded onto a German steamer departing in haste, although the vessel's name was omitted, possibly due to incomplete wartime communication or deliberate redaction. This account carried weight because it referenced a movement of cargo that matched the circumstances surrounding the Amber Room's final documented location, offering the first archival clue that the crates may have been evacuated by sea rather than destroyed inland. Historians revisiting departure records from April 1945 identified only 2 steamers leaving Pilau on the specific date mentioned in the report, and among them, the SS Karlsruhe stood out because it carried both military cargo and fleeing civilians at a moment when resources were scarce and decisions were made with strategic urgency. The steamer's manifest listed return cargo, a vague term frequently used to conceal high-value materials, adding another layer of plausibility to the connection. Although the NKVD document did not explicitly name the Amber Room, its description of secretive loading procedures aligned convincingly with testimonies from wartime laborers who recalled guarded boxes being moved toward the docks. With these details combined, the possibility that the room left Königsberg by sea no longer resembled a fringe theory, and instead became a hypothesis supported by archival evidence, historical context, and logistical reasoning. Descent into the SS Karlsruhe. When the Baltic tech diving team located a sonar anomaly north of the Polish coast, they initially expected another fragmented wreck typical of the region, yet the first descent revealed a remarkably intact steamer resting upright on the seabed. The SS Karlsruhe, long suspected but never definitively found, appeared preserved in a condition that immediately suggested its cargo might still be contained within its hull. The divers deployed a remotely operated vehicle to avoid disturbing the fragile structure, guiding it through narrow openings created by corrosion and battle damage. As the drone's lights pierced the darkness, they illuminated twisted railings, collapsed bulkheads, and layers of silt that had accumulated undisturbed for 7 decades, creating an atmosphere that felt simultaneously frozen in time and precariously close to collapse. Moving deeper into the vessel, the team encountered military vehicles positioned in a formation that implied intentional placement rather than chaotic sinking. Cars and motorcycles appeared arranged along the central corridor of the cargo hold, forming a protective barrier around an interior section that had remained sealed under mud and debris since 1945. The ROV's cameras eventually captured images of large wooden crates tucked behind this mechanical barricade, each fitted with metal reinforcements that looked surprisingly intact despite their long submersion. Their dimensions echoed the packing descriptions recorded during the room's earlier evacuations, and their preserved condition aligned with what scientists understand about anoxic environments within the Baltic Sea, where microorganisms that typically destroy submerged wood struggle to survive. The divers recognized that this arrangement, vehicles shielding oversized crates in the most protected part of the ship, suggested a level of priority that exceeded ordinary military logistics. The Karlsruhe, once considered an improbable candidate, now appeared to hold a configuration of artifacts that matched both the NKVD account and the long-speculated escape route of the Amber Room. What the boxes could contain. Speculation about the crates inside the SS Karlsruhe intensified as researchers evaluated what might realistically survive after decades underwater, since the Baltic's unusual chemistry can preserve some materials while damaging others beyond recognition. Amber, the primary substance of the room, is a fossilized resin that resists salt water and remains structurally stable even after prolonged immersion, which means the decorative panels could endure as fragmented yet recoverable pieces. However, the chamber relied on a complex internal framework of wood, adhesives, and quicksilver-backed mirrors, and these components might have deteriorated into delicate remnants, requiring immediate conservation if exposed to air or shifting temperature. Scientists studying similar recoveries note that organic supports often collapse when lifted from saturated environments, creating a scenario in which the amber itself outlasts the structure that once held it. While amber's resilience strengthens the possibility that recognizable elements could be present, historians also acknowledge alternative but significant possibilities. High-value cargo in 1945 sometimes included Reichsbank reserves, confidential documents, or art seized from occupied territories, any of which might have been transported in similarly reinforced crates. The military vehicles arranged around the boxes indicate that the contents were treated as strategically important rather than incidental, reinforcing the notion that this shipment represented something beyond standard equipment. Each potential explanation carries implications for understanding the final weeks of the war, yet the convergence of crate size, placement, and timing keeps the Amber Room hypothesis at the center of scholarly attention. The storm above the seabed. As interest in the SS Karlsruhe intensified, scholars and policymakers began confronting the ethical questions that inevitably surface when a wartime wreck also functions as a mass grave, since hundreds of civilians and soldiers perished during the steamer's final moments. International guidelines, including UNESCO conventions on underwater cultural heritage, emphasize that recovery efforts must balance scientific value with respect for human remains, creating a delicate framework in which archaeological ambition intersects with moral responsibility. Lifting crates from such a site would require exceptional justification, particularly because any disturbance to the hull risks destabilizing sediment layers that may conceal unexploded ordnance or fragile personal artifacts. These factors complicate decisions that might otherwise seem straightforward in a purely technical context. Jurisdictional questions deepen the uncertainty, because the wreck lies within Poland's exclusive economic zone. Yet the crates, if they contain the amber room, represent cultural property originally belonging to Russia and removed during German occupation. Germany, meanwhile, maintains historical ties to the ship, but holds limited legal standing regarding stolen art under international restitution norms. Each nation interprets the implications differently, and scholars anticipate that any confirmed identification of the cargo would ignite diplomatic negotiations shaped by history, memory, and unresolved wartime grievances. The debate extends far beyond treasure, ultimately reflecting how societies determine ownership of cultural heritage transformed by conflict. The legend versus the reality. The Amber Room's disappearance has allowed it to drift beyond the boundaries of a lost artwork and into the realm of cultural mythology, where absence often shapes identity more powerfully than presence. For generations, the mystery surrounding it has grown not only from wartime chaos, but from the human instinct to protect stories that resist closure. If the crates inside the SS Karlsruhe contain genuine fragments of the chamber, the discovery would shift the legend into a delicate physical reality that demands careful restoration and historical clarity. Yet, if the crates reveal unrelated cargo, the room's symbolic power would remain intact, since mysteries that endure for decades acquire meaning through the very persistence of the search. This tension defines the debate over whether the wreck should be disturbed, because every decision carries consequences for how future generations will interpret both the artifact and the narrative built around its disappearance. The Baltic continues to guard its stories in depths shaped by time, yet every discovery draws us nearer to resolving a mystery that has lingered for generations. To follow each step of this search, subscribe, enable notifications, and join us as we uncover the history still waiting to surface.